annual flagship initiative, the MyBHARAT National Youth Campaign, is a 15-day movement observed from 1st of August to the 15th of August, which was conceived in the year 2020 during the COVID as a heartfelt resolve to dedicate the Independence Fortnight entirely to Bharat. The campaign brings together students, educators, thought leaders, and citizens through inspiring talks, lectures, competitions, and civic activities. The lecture series of the campaign seeks to instill patriotism, inspire responsible citizenship, and encourage every Indian to think for Bharat, speak for Bharat, and work for Bharat. So, with that, I'd like to introduce today's guest, Dr. S Somanath, who is an eminent Indian aerospace engineer who served as the 10th chairman of the Indian Space Research Organization ISRO, the Secretary of the Department of Space, and the Chairman of Space Commission. His key leadership and landmark missions include Chandrayaan-3 success. Under his leadership as the chairman, India achieved its historic soft landing near the lunar south on August 23rd, 2023. So 3 years from there, we are just talking to him, to the great man. This made India the first country in the world to reach Moon South Pole region and the fourth country overall to accomplish a soft lunar landing. He's also oversaw the Aditya L1 mission, which is dedicated for solar observatory mission placed successfully at the Sun-Earth Lagrange point L1. He's also actively participating in the Gangayaan program. Rather, he conducted key milestones and test launches, which is actually the futuristic program that we are looking forward to. He's pioneered multiple launch vehicle systems and specialized in system engineering and launch vehicle integrations. With that, sir, we have set the stage for you. The launch vehicle is ready and we are ready to go. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. S. Somanath, sir.
Thank you so much. I believe I'm audible. Okay.
Audible.
Okay. Thank you once again, everybody. It's a really honor to be part of this Disha series of lectures. So I have a presentation. I will share that presentation to all of you. Hope it is visible.
Yeah, it's visible, sir.
Okay, so the title given to my talk is Space and Technology, Bharat's Global Footprint. So in this speech, I will speak about Bharat, a bit about the technology domain of India currently that we are and comparison with the rest of the world. Specifically, I'll move over to the space technology and what all things are the nature of changes that's happening across the global arena and what area that we need to put our effort and where are the opportunities for young people in this domain. And finally, concluding, looking like the stages, how we will progress when we look at Bharat in 2050, how space technology and related technology domains will shape us. And this is a summary of my talk, and I'll go straight to the definition or rather a specific point about Bharat. I think it's something very important for all of us to understand that we are a civilizational continuity, a nation which is very, very foundational in its civilizational continuity. So we can't call Bharat an ancient civilization. It's a living civilization. Even now, we are continuously culturally present, and it's also shaping the way we look at the national culture and identity. And it has been so in the last many, many years, and we still continue to uphold that cultural identity. And this identity is something not isolated one. It is something which is very absorbing, adapting, and synthesizing influence from every corner, and not rejecting them. So that's the nature of Bharat. And why I say this, we will understand a little later. So the guiding principle or the philosophy of this is that we have a continuity with change and no rupture. We are not isolating from anything. And India is also modern, and the civilizational connect with an old civilization doesn't make us old. We are still very brand new, and we can always evolve to a civilizational stage to be modern. So basically, what we say, the past gives us an intellectual and ethical foundations, the present, the tools and opportunities to us. So we are going to be a future-oriented society without losing its cultural identity, or that's what I want to specifically say. So we will say that by looking at technology domain, we can say that we move from heritage to innovation, from wisdom to new age technology, and from civilizational continuity to a prosperous nation. I think this is something which am so eager to look uh, at this moment. So I don't know whether it just lost its presentation is still visible, right?
It's visible, sir.
Okay, something, just I clicked something else. Okay. Now, if you look at the science and technology domains in the ancient India, we see many, many areas. I'm not going to explain each of them to you. Look at way far beyond the Christian era, we see the dentistry, Ayurveda, the civic amenities, mathematical tools, the commercial tools, medical capabilities, metallurgy and material science, and many such capacities evolving at many parts of this country, and all of them contributing to the economy of this nation at some point in time. So why I say this, it has not been a trading economy or a selling economy. It has been a technology dominant economy where many such activities, where innovation, scientific capability, technology development actually created so much of wealth in the past. One of the which has always been intriguing to me is the metallurgy. I always wonder how people were able to develop such capabilities at that point in time. For example, processing of zinc has been one of the complex metallurgical process where zinc is very difficult, one of the most difficult uh, metal to be extracted out of its ore. So the rasayana process, which was developed, was only in India, and that was only in uh, came about to be understood by the from the Savar in Rajasthan, and the whole world was coming to Bharat for buying zinc, because with zinc only copper can be made stronger. At that point in time, the metal which was available was only copper. So copper and alloy with zinc was one of the important uh, component to make the alloys of bronze. So we can tell that such processes, metallurgical processes were developed in India. We can also talk about another example like astronomy. I think the Bhaskaracharya's legacy is so important. Why, for me, like a person like me, which is connected to space and science and astronomy, I I get specifically fascinated by the mathematical work that he did in his Siddhanta ceremony, talking about planetary positions and events of astronomy like eclipses and many other things which he was able to predict. The book that came about through his teaching later, the Surya Siddhanta, in which that we talk about the planetary motion, the gravity, and many other concepts very beautifully. Though it is contained in the language which is very, very cryptic form, it is possibly was not easy for everybody to understand. But today we have translations of those books which enable us to understand. The thought process went into human mind way back at that time. Now, why I say all of this is that we have a scientific legacy, and with that legacy, we can work today to lead in Bharat to a knowledge economy. That's very important. The importance is that we believe in our ability, believe in our capability, the strong capacities in mathematics, astronomy, metallurgy, medicine, logic. All these are something which was very strong in our mind. The knowledge tradition was integrally infused into our philosophy and observation. And there were also institutions came about with this type of knowledge society being there, the Nalanda, Takshila, Vikramashila, Vallabhai. All of them was an attractive destination for global students to come. And today we are showing ourselves once again to be technologically relevant through our leadership in space technology, information technology, pharmaceuticals, and engineering capacity, where slowly these ecosystems, other ecosystems are expanding, and we embed our scientific capacity into our national development goals, which is very, very important. So I will say the new greater vision for us is to move away from the knowledge preservation, which we have been doing in the past, to knowledge creation at global scale. And this is through which only the nation becomes powerful and prosperous. I think it's very important to understand that. Now, today, if you look at Bharat, then we see we are one of the most attractive destinations for anybody to deal with technology transactions. We have an education in terms of technology side, IITs, which are the hallmark of the quality, which is ranked in 6th on scientific publications and 10 on patents. Nature Index, which is one of the global measures of our overall publication index, we are ranked 9th in terms of quality research output, which is to be further improved, of course. But then in terms of overall scientific and engineering publications, we are 3rd. But we still be little far lower than the second nation. And we also started investing substantially in science and technology different sectors in agriculture, healthcare, space research, nuclear, and other scientific research. I'll come out talk about this aspect little later. And we are one of the leading IT destination service destinations. And this is where we need to transition from this to something else. And we are also having a self-reliant nuclear and space technology for capability. But much of our gaps are very important for us to understand. If Bharat need to move to a real powerful nation, then we need to address these gaps. One of the gap that we have is the type of expenditure that we have on R&D is very small compared to nations which are spending much higher numbers, specifically to looking at the population basis. Suppose you look at in terms of population, we are substantially lower. This definitely need to be enhanced, and there is clear indication that this year happened to be one of the highest GDP spending in terms of R&D expenditure from the publications which are available. But that remains to be an issue that we need to address, how to allocate more money for R&D and engineering development. Another measure is that how much of R&D expenditure as part of the total expenditure of R&D private sector shares. So in India, if you look at, it is one of the lowest compared to other nations, which is very important because the industries who are the private industries in India, which are the business entities where much of our tax revenues come, they do not base on their business on in-house research and development capacity. This is one of the serious issue which we need to address. And once these companies and businesses start spending money on the core R&D, the knowledge products that come out of it will be unique in nature, and we will have a much better say in the global market. And this is a very important step that we need to have. So the critical need for technology for Bharat is in many areas. I think we can look at it in many areas. We see domains like sustainability and fragility, where the climate shift, geopolitical shifts make us to work in these domains. For example, greenhouse gases, climate change issues. We have reliance on fossil fuels, which you are seeing every day. How do you really manage, move away from that? We have issues like cyber attacks and bioweaponry. Similarly, we have resource constraints coming from food, water scarcity, and rare and critical mineral scarcity. How do you work on these domains to solve the problem? We see issues of limited resources of critical minerals, which can actually hamper high technology development like electronics and space. Food and water also can become critical. Today, we may not see that, but then slowly, we are moving towards such a scenario. We also have a different issue called longevity and viability of life, especially in terms of healthcare. How do we handle large part of the population, which is still, we need support. We also have logistic issues, such being a big nation, how do we expand our transportation network? How do we provide housing, handling pollution, digital connectivity, the AI revolution, which is happening. So there are so many issues that we need to handle as far as technology is concerned, and all of them can be solved only through technical interventions. In green hydrogen production, we know that there is a lot of thrust. E-mobility, there is thrust. There is a lot of in space missions like quantum mission where government looks at it. In agriculture, we see precision agriculture. Deep sea is a focused area today. And equally important is space exploration. In the medical domain, we see a lot of thrust on medical devices where you want to provide low cost access to diagnostic tools and AI assisted medical support to people at far flung areas. So all of this becomes an essence of our building a technology powerful nation, creating resilience, how to support innovation, and which will ultimately give to social and economic welfare. and then we will be a globally competitive advantage. Just not solving our own problem, but we should be able to solve problems for the entire world. So towards this, there are a lot of actions happening. We see participation of private to technology development and science happens through Anusandhan National Research Foundation, encouraging private sector R&D funds in many areas. We see startup support by government announcements. We see scientific and science diplomacy and alliances to bring technology from other part of the world faster so that we don't reinvent the wheels. We also look at reforms of institutions and governance so that this whole process can be accelerated. But this continue to remain as a slow process, by we believe that we will be able to accelerate and create impacts in many, many domains, which are written on the right side, which includes electronics and semiconductor. We have large scale funding support now. We have telecom technologies, especially the network support hardwares, which are usually coming from other part of the world. We need to develop in-house. The quantum technologies, of course, there is a quantum mission running at multiple hubs. We have cyber physical systems where IoT, robotics, and software becomes the key for autonomous systems. AI is a very important domain. We see that our core capacity in AI is being developed instead of the application layer. We look at biomanufacturing, which is important for us to long-term food production. Like that, I can go on explaining this, but then let me go further into some other areas, specifically the space area. I think space has been one area where I am more closely associated and familiar. I can tell you the space has been doing fantastic work in terms of application domain. We have been supporting the telecom, resource mapping, meteorology, ocean fisheries, navigation of aircrafts, navic support, disaster management, search and rescue. All of this have been our part of our service network. And it is all being used through a lot of user connectivity with our satellites, which are not large in numbers. We see that number of satellites which we are having in space, communication only 18 and Earth observation only 22. And NAVIC, though we have launched 9, it is still having only 3 satellites which are functional. So we have a crunch of resources at this moment. And how do we really expand this is a question that we need to address. I can tell you that the investment that we have made is not huge in space sector, but it has also produced benefits in substantial ways. We say, based on a study, that for every 1 rupee spent, the return of investment has been rupees 3 in the form of direct, indirect, and induced uh, benefits. And this has really created a certain national economy, created employment, not only in ISRO, but also in subsidiary industries, and also created boosting the public funds and supported critical sectors, which all of you know that which we discussed in terms of telecom, IT, SATCOM, navigation, and services of manufacturing. So this really has been an impactful domain in terms of the small money that we were able to spend the last so many years. So to come to talk about the money that we spent in space, it is hardly 13,000 crores. But the real money is not this. I just want to tell you that recently government has come out with projects and programs worth 80,000 crores. And this will be spent over a span of about 8 years. And this is also going to transform this sector. So there is a government funding happening in space. Though we talk about private initiatives in space and we celebrate them, we should not forget the fact that there is substantial government support to develop new launch vehicles, satellites, and programs, which we will discuss later. So, though the annual budget remains more or less the same for ISRO, there are project-based expenditure which is actually increasing substantially. So we should be happy about knowing this. And this will only grow provided that we expand our R&D ecosystem, commercialization of space in a different channel than what we have been doing till now. Now, today we see young people developing a lot of stuffs in space, companies like Skyroot and Actinical launching their rockets, and lot of support for them given by ISRO, which is a very happy thing to see. And small companies are developing their big startups. Some of them rose to very high level of evaluation. Some of them doing commercial business with the strong national nations where space activity is going very well, and they are being recognized and being brought to the front, celebrating their success. It's a great thing to see, but behind that, we know that the knowledge and skill developed by ISRO remains as a core competence. So we have to have a two-pronged approach to create a strong ISRO where R&D happens, and equally strong private enterprise where the transitioning that some of the knowledge into products and services to start with, and they also gain in R&D capacity to develop substantially new products and services the global market is looking for. But what is exactly the global changes which are happening and where India is still not reached that level? I think this is important for us to understand. For example, reusability, still not achieved in India. We have not reached high launch cadence. Number of launches per year is still low. And lower cost to access is still not reached because our rockets still remain costly, though it is relatively lower cost, but it is still costly. We also have a lot of activities which are happening in the space-based solutions in IoT, automation, governance, and strategic services. We have given a few, but not really to a scale. Similarly, in space, we see microgravity, space manufacturing services, human and planetary exploration is a domain that is still being developed in India. We talk about space tourism, space stations, science missions are in the offing. We are yet to develop. And most importantly, the small satellite constellations, surveillance, and direct-to-device services and data centers is the new thing that is happening elsewhere. And we are yet to enter large-scale small satellite constellation businesses. And these are done by private entities, not really by governments. And while we do all of this, we have issues related to space situational awareness, space traffic management, deorbiting services, and many other challenges coming out of it, where India is preparing ourselves to get into the domain, and we already started doing things. Equally important is that space is a strategic capability, and this creates a very framework for us to expand the space system around this theme. For example, earlier we used to have radars in the ground to track missiles, but today it is possible to do that through spacecrafts, which will give you a larger technical intelligence and a powerful data source, provided we have a large constellation of satellites to do this. It's not possible with a few of them. Similarly, we also have space domain awareness through many things like radars, optical and IR telescopes, space-based observation, missile tracking, which looks not only the missiles, look at the entire space for drones, radar, missiles, and other measures which are happening, including other satellites. So we need to track all of them. We also have to look at jamming and spoofing scenarios whenever there is a conflict where we need to be protecting our own assets that it doesn't get into. So here we have NAVIC and other technologies which are tamper proof. The space has another capacity that it can look at large domains without much issue, like oceans as well as sea, where we cannot generally do observations for using other methods. So we need to expand our fleet of satellites, basically looking at sea, as well as most developed technologies to look at seafaring threats. Now we have created large number of satellites. We have in use, I told you many, we are already created satellites under the commercial entities. We also have building satellite in strategic, also created international cooperation satellites were built. So if you look at, then we feel very happy. We have large number of satellites, but that number still remains to be only 53, 54 numbers, not very large. If you compare with our neighbors, it is at least 1/10 of in size. So there is a need to expand this because number of satellites do matter, especially in the domain of availability, something which is lost that you have a replace capacity, and also revisits. We call it a location if you want to observe. You should be able to see it very frequently. The core of all of the space sector is the launch capacity. Unless you have this capacity in India, we will be dependent on someone. I'm very happy to be part of this journey of building rockets like PSLV, LVM-3, SSLV. We have been building them. Now we have decided that we are moving over to transferring this knowledge to build and launch them in scale by the private. We have to watch and see how it will turn around and how industry will put their efforts to invest as well as create capacity within the industries to do it at scale. Unless you do that, it is not possible for ISRO and government alone to produce in numbers and launch them because commercial interests do drive the scale. And this is very important aspect. And we have taken the first step to understand how this can be done. While we do all of that, we build a bigger rocket like NGLV and the vertical landing capacity, etc., which are part of the R&D investment. But while this is happening, private is also started building that. Recently you would have watched the Sky Route launching the Vikram. I'm very happy to see that they have a long-term, large number production plan. So one day they may count in terms of count, the private launched rockets will be more number than the government launched rockets, which is the case in other big nations. So we are in that direction now. Slowly, this change is happening. Similarly, we are putting such efforts in the satellite building also. Communication satellites, we are telling that some of these industries should start doing, but this is a huge challenge. Similarly, in terms of finding the ability to do that and find markets for them. But of course, this will happen in small satellite. We have done some transfer of technology to small satellites to industry so they can produce in large numbers. And I'm aware of at least 4 or 5 companies in India who are having the ability to build large number of small satellites. But the large Earth observation satellite continue to be realized only through ISRO because the strategic use of such capacity of building still exists only in ISRO, and private companies are yet to reach that level of optical satellites building. But this is a slow process because of the acquisition of electronics and devices from global sources still takes a lot of time. And Navic, Navic has been a core capacity that we built for handling our strategic PNT service capacity. It is slightly going through a problem phase because of the failures. But I believe the additional 3 more satellites will be immediately launched to reach an operational level. But I can tell you, Navic is still very secured, very accurate capacity which India can have because it is a geostationary orbit and it is beyond any damage by anybody. So we need to have this, and it's very important that it is built at fast pace and then made it operational. Not only that satellites are available, we also have to ensure that it is actually put into use by the users, including our strategic users. We also have scientific satellites like Chandrayaan we built and special satellites, which are very big ones like space stations and ISR, which only such huge institution like ISRO only can build. But they are important for the nation to develop next end of technology. But look at the applications which are emerging in the world are different today. It is not just the agriculture, weather, and disaster. There are many areas where the big data, analytics, and decision making is happening in space. So the connectivity of satellites to internet and acquisitions, lot of information from the ground, processing them and driving decisions in the ground becomes an important capacity that satellites going to have. So data collection, processing, and AI or edge computing, either in the geospatial network, IoT, surveillance data, and then define a set of actionable items down on the earth. It becomes the role of satellites, no longer just information alone, but decisions will be the one based on the satellites. For this, we need to create a constellation of satellites. So another interesting thing happening is, so I am moving away from what we have been doing. I'm not explaining what we have been doing. I'm looking at what we need to do in the domain of technology. So one of them is the communication, earth observation, and PNT is nothing but position, navigation, timing services are getting integrated today. They are no longer separate satellites. So essentially, for addressing problems like smart cities, smart manufacturing, connected vehicles, etc., we need sensors from many sources, and they were all getting connected so as to use them. For example, in a cyber physical system, this is precisely the way we fuse the sensors and create a software layer over which that we operate. But then it also has faces challenges in the form of how we do a large scale such system, its fault detection, security, standardization across platform. All of these are issues in a cyber physical system. But then there is no escape. I think satellites are moving towards that. And recently, some of the information available in large constellations, they are going to have communication, earth observation, PNT, signal intelligence, all built into the same framework of satellites. Another area where we have to now put our interest and concentration is how to induct AI and ML. We call AI into space. Essentially, AI can be used in many areas in space technology. It can be used for autonomous navigation, fault management of the space, right, which is an engineering function. Like launching health of rocket, we can monitor. We can do earth observation data analytics, mission planning and operations automation, so that a lot of people are not required to drive the large constellation of satellites. But challenges in terms of AI development, failure scenario training, the failures which happen to radiation, certified AI of criticality. So there are so many issues. But I think these are all solvable issues, and I'm very happy to see that many companies, including governmental institutions, are very focused on AI today. And we see the growth of AI not just as a LLM utility, which is an user layer, but in the core agentic AI development as well as physics inspired AI development happening in many areas. I am sure that sometime later AI will become an engineering tool rather than an advisory tool. We also have a great challenge in inducting robotics, automation, and in-orbit services in the due course of time, because the new businesses coming up in space are related to this. More autonomous satellites are the thing now. They are capable of planning entire trajectory and mission, also do refueling from the other satellites, and sometimes also do deorbiting when they fail through uh, tugs and things like that being developed. In India itself, I know there are a few startup companies developing this, but this slowly getting developed. You are aware that ISRO has recently done a mission called SpaceX, where two satellites were launched to separate and made to dock each other. And but this is a domain with all the challenges in front of us, but must be solved, and we must become a master, which is something possible with the spread of robotics and AI and sensor knowledge spreading in many institutions. We also need to know that software is becoming the higher end, and satellites are equipped with software defined systems. It also are equipped with optical communication capacity, and with that you can actually do the quantum key distribution softwares capabilities in satellites, which actually makes them secure in terms of communication links. So one of the core capacity that we need to develop is to have satellites with QKD capability, so that we can secure not only the links in the space through optical communication, but also the terrestrial fiber optic links can be secured using such QKD services. And this is happening, and we have also programs in India itself to develop such capacities in the space to distribute quantum key distribution for supporting terrestrial secure links. Moving from chemical propulsion to electric propulsion is one of the important topic. I think you know that electrical propulsion is already there in satellites, but then powerful engines of this are important. But I am also showing an aircraft in the picture showing that electrical aircrafts are also important. And there is a connection. The connection is in terms of power storage, like batteries, how to build batteries with lower mass and high storage density, how to use fuels like hydrogen to create fuel cell based energy resources, possibly use nuclear energy to generate electricity in space and then drive some of these missions, long term step, working in space. So all of this becomes another domain which is core competence we need to develop. I am seeing in India there are a lot of startup companies working in building small satellites, but many of them are buying these components from Western countries or other part of the world, bring them here, integrate and develop connecting all of them into a package and calling them an Indian product. But this is a big area where we have not invested our money. Even those private companies who are working are not developing everything in India. Of course, we cannot develop everything, but at least we should substantially high number of items we should develop. For example, cameras, radar payloads, solar panels, propulsion systems, inertial sensors, gyros, composite structures, thermal control systems. All these are today we buy them. I think we need to slow. Some of them I have started building in India, and the challenge today is the how we acquire this electronics and semiconductor capacity, which is important for space. And unless you build them in scale, we will not be able to do it at low cost. So this remains one of the huge challenge for us to upscale our innovation capacity in space. But equally, like space is another domain called defense. I think, you know, the conflict zones. Today we see non-linear space, that tools which are used earlier are not the tools we are using. And it's also multi-domain and it's across spectrum. Operations are happening in like strategic space sector happens in cyber. We also see drones in very high way. We see the space being used for intelligence gathering. There are directed energy weapons. It becomes network centric, autonomous. There are people are not involved in the front. So all this creates capacities in many areas in technology. So space and this becomes linked in some way or the other. So we see non-kinetic and kinetic. Kinetic is where you use energetic weapons to destroy, whereas non-kinetic, we have other methods to create disruptions. But this capacity development is important for us to secure our borders and our uh, peace. I think that's very important. But if you look at the defense technologies, the you compare India with the rest of the world, we see us ourselves not in very nice place. For example, there is a cost constraint customers in the lower end where you don't take high cost items. So there are solution buyers where there is some money, so they spend that. But there are low cost providers. You see them where they are. So if you look at India, we see we ourselves are placed somewhere midway. So we are capacities to produce low cost items and reasonably sub quality items. We can actually scale us towards suppliers of high value, high no, credence systems. I think this is a good direction that we should move. We should find out where the strategizing is needed really to find ourselves in a better market. Today, I can tell you that India is started exporting defense equipment and less of kinetic equipments and more of non-kinetic equipments. That's what is very important for us to do that over a period of time. For example, if you one of the capacity that we need to develop where that we'll have huge business is to build defense equipments and technologies not only for ourselves but also for the global customers, where the high-end manufacturing will be one of the capacity because manufacturing focus has once again come to Indian industries. I am very happy to know that I have been dealing with a lot of startup companies where they want to invest in manufacturing and also more focused on technologies. So both will drive us to move away from making explosives but to high technology items at a high-end manufacturing. And this is the path that we should move so that it will be more value-added product will come, not the bulk products. I think this is the core of our approach to defense manufacturing. So we are not simply making pattern tanks and guns, but more into IT and technology elements. So if you have to really assure self-reliance and leadership in defense, we should focus more on non-kinetic. Okay, important is kinetic because we need to have an ability to build all those capacities. So we should scale it up, increase our export content, but then non-kinetic area, we can actually become a market leader. Essentially, you look at how do you develop software systems, R&D in startups and MSMEs, and the skilled workforce help us to create such capacities. Whereas the kinetic capacity is only in large scale manufacturing because of the low labor cost advantage. Now, look at the space once again. The space once again, you see we need to build large number of satellites. You know that surveillance requirement is very huge. We need to look at very high borders we have, both land borders and sea borders. They're spread over thousands of kilometers. They need to be looked at very high resolution, both in optical, radar, and thermal. We also need to have sea must be watched with a large number of satellites and able to see the seafaring ships, and we should be able to identify them. We should be able to do all weather imaging. I think there is a lot of requirements that this nature of requirements comes, and building the satellites has been one of the important capacities that we have developed. And it is happening now, but then in fast track, we should be able to complete them and launch them. Equally significant is the need for creating communication intelligence and electronic intelligence satellites. Uh, Essentially, this is nothing but to look at the signal emitting devices, systems, places to be identified, possibly do some eavesdropping on communication infrastructure, and then process this data and then give intelligence to the people here to understand what is happening in the ground. So there are software as well as hardware technologies involved, and in India itself, such payloads are currently being developed up to 18 gigahertz. Some of the companies are trying to expand this frequency band to say 40 domain, and creating a constellation of such satellites becomes important to have a global gathering of information and its analytics. For powerful nations, getting information is very core of its intelligence process. I think its satellites play a very important role in this. Navik, I told you that Navik is so crucial to us, though there were failures of various kinds, and also want to track the history saying that we started with two bands called L5 and S. Today, we are already moved over to L1, which is called civilian signal, which is there in your mobile phones. But we have only one satellite launched with L1 and L2 band, L1 band right now. We have to put more satellites in L1 band so that our signals will be available to domestic users. But our core of NAVIC is not to provide services to domestic users, civilian users, but to provide services to the strategic users. So our focus should shift to that, which is already possible with L5 and S-band. Only the transitioning has to happen. But if India wants to go to a bigger constellation at some point in time, there is an architecture already available. And this will be one of the steps that India need to take us to the next level. Quantum, I already discussed, I'll skip this. But look at the global capacity in space. If you look at, I'm not going to name any nation, but if you really look at across various nations, you see number of satellites which are launched is actually increasing, specifically the big players. But then we see a decline in the Europe, we decline in India. And of course, decline, not much of increase in Russian constellation due to many geopolitical reasons. But then India cannot become a mute spectator. There must be a way to increase it. And that becomes the core of our addressing this challenge. That's why we have a vision today. How do we can really inspire young people to look at Indian space program in a more hopeful manner? Programs like Gaganyaan, programs of building Bharati Antariksha Station, landing an Indian on the moon through Chandrayaan series of missions becomes an important item as far as the long-term vision setting is concerned. And this becomes a very background work where we will continue to expand our capacity while we have a front-end work in terms of scale. This is not scale we am discussing. This is more of core competence, whereas the scale is equally important through various means that we should achieve the scale also. Space station, Bharati Antariksha Station is going to be one of the important item in the agenda where R&D in institutions and academic institutions specifically, as well as domains like material science, medical, human life area can really benefit. And this area, they have started some workshops, etc., with stakeholders to see how this can actually become more beneficial for young people to identify how do we really become an astronaut, how do we take my science problem to space and then make use of the space station when it is ready to start operations. It may take a few years down the line, but by the time you young people really graduate and take up research assignment, possibly this is an area where you can look at it, connect to ISRO to create your own pathways using Bharati Antariksha Station as your research station. While we move to 2050 in space, there are many steps that are identified. I am not going to discuss everything, but then basically we see a role that will be played by private space industry, very important role played by ISRO, the National Space Agency in creating advanced capacities, human space flight, lunar exploration, reusability, developing advanced payloads, missions to interplanetary missions, outer planet exploration, etc. Whereas private industry will focus on creating component and vendors, partners, developing core capacity where we are currently importing, developing private launch vehicles and businesses for global players, export and manufacturing in India, creating a manufacturing hub here, maybe building a global constellation hub. I think all of these are going to be the roles that they will play. So we put together like through a digital economy where the Earth observation, communication, PNT will integrate, both will become a partner. That's where. And for example, the 5G satellite communication is one important area. And this area, I am very sure about that we need to bring new players. So in space, we need to have self-reliance and expansion of the scale. So government has already made some plans to build this type of growth trajectory through various steps that are being announced. Occasionally, you hear them. So believe that this will really enthuse startups and industries to take such roles, but it's not an easy role. There is capacity limitations and market access. Both are important to be overcome. I believe that will definitely be overcome over a period of time to expand our economy to significant percentage, something like 8 to 9% of the global space economy. If you look at the India's global coverage, we see that we operate globally. We have tie up with a lot of nations across the world. in terms of capacity development, diplomatic relations, tie-ups in policy, payload accommodation, launch services, professional services, supporting disaster management globally, working with other agencies like Outer Space Treaty, uh, different accords like Artemis Accord. So India is not isolated from the world. We are integral part of the space dialogue that is happening, technology work that is happening in the past and will continue to be so. So I want to assure you, young people, there is a huge opportunity for young people to look at globally connecting. It's no longer an isolated space economy we are going to create. We have created a lot of international cooperation in the past and got a lot of benefit. I want to tell you for bringing to light, like we worked with Russia, USA, France, Japan, while we were developing our early phase of rockets, and technologies. I'm not going to talk about all the old stories like the satellite technology and engines, but looking at forward-looking capacity, how you will do, I will explain you. But these nations, which are powerful space-faring nations, were part of our journey, and they continue to be. I will show you some of them. For example, Russia, we work with the Gaganyaan support and other semi-cryo engine, Navik reference station. USA, we work with the NISR, much of the Gaganyaan work and other technologies. France, we work on a new satellite called Trishna. We have been working on many other training processes. Japan, we have now defined a new mission called LUPEX, the Chandrayaan 5. We also have supporting many small nations while government intervene and interact with them like Oman, ASEAN countries, and our neighboring states and African and South Asian countries. So this and including G20 satellite, which is satellite which is announced for G20 nations. So we have a lot of multilateral, bilateral engagements with these nations primarily that our space technology capacity is not an isolated capacity for the work with all the big players so that we are at an equal level. A few of the examples include the NISR, which is the NASA ISRO synthetic aperture radar, which is accomplished successfully. Giving a lot of information. Current John work on the rock rover where the lander will be built by India to have the Chandrayaan 5 or the LUPEX mission. NASA isosynthetic radar repetitive visit on of Earth and giving very significant information on many areas like the water stressing, tectonic movements, using its dual frequency radar, which gives you very capability and much of in times of satellite development, data utility services, meteorological services, space situational awareness, science like heliophysics and planetary space, academic engagement institutions, human space, NAVIC and other services like we have methods to strong engagement with all these people. But in India, I know Ethereal, they are all doing fantastically well. Showcase powerful rockets to be built and working on reusable rockets. So look at them, and I can tell you some of them are really employing thousands of people to build their satellites, and they have already become exporters of systems to other European and American nations. In the satellite side also, some of the names which I have displayed here really made headlines in terms of their ability to deliver services, including services like hyperspectral imaging, space situational awareness, electric propulsion, subsystem supply. I think all of really made real headlines. And I want to conclude and move over to the last of the slides to tell you the future in the space. I think many challenges are there. We have to overcome the challenge of achieving low cost access through reusability. We have to build large constellations. We have to look at how do we handle conflicts in the space. How do we really encourage high technology science missions to happen? Uh, True R&D in the instruments building and interpretation, how you create ability to go to other interplanetary objects and do activities like mining, commercialization, colonization. All this becomes topics of interest where we need to put our more efforts. So the lot of initiatives today are interesting, like states are issuing space and industrial policies where they are attracting startups and industries to come up. And many industries and startups are really showing their success stories. We have a program like a Space City program in Andhra where they want to build a huge city where manufacturing of space will happen. And many academic institutions also think academic programs for space and aerospace, which shows demand is increasing in this sector. But for as far as the nation is concerned, there are big priorities I am not going to discuss, but these are technology priorities like building engines of high capacity. Electronics becomes an important area where we need to pay attention, and producing component subsystems in India. We also have to have manufacturing ecosystem at scale to really support where the partnership between industries will become important item. So let me conclude, say that in the vision of Bharat, with respect to other technologies, I don't want to say much, but then we have to work on R&D. We should become an epicenter of R&D, fostering innovation and propelling progress, economic resilience. We should be leaders in the technology evolution, and also uh, we should become a pioneer in universal standards of digital commons. Why digital? I say space is going to become an integral part of the digital infrastructure that we are creating. It cannot be isolated because IoT, communication, PNT are integral part of the digital services. And we should also create huge capacity to develop startups, allow them to develop new companies, allow them to fail, allow them to succeed, so that we have a culture of mentorship and culture of entrepreneurial capacity developed in this country, which will be really good for us. So with this, let me thank you and stop my talk at this time and wait for feedback discussion.
What a wonderful, insightful lecture, Dr. Somanath. To the gamut of engineering space way back southern BC and to what we can do and future. So I think you give a perspective, history, you gave the current situation, and you also put out a clear roadmap on what we need to do till 2050. I think, as they say in the space launch, the orbit has to be achieved and the mission has to get success. I think that's the journey that we need to go forward. So I think a great message to all the young budding engineers and space enthusiasts for them to look forward. I think you have explained so many opportunities with space research and the go-to market that we have. So I think we have about 4 or 5 minutes. So I'll have two questions. First was obviously you mentioned about the old scientific traditions like Bhaskaracharya, Aryabhatta. Also, there's concept of Vaimanika Shastra by Bharadwaj, Sage Bharadwaj. So, how are we going to bridge this gap, or rather, how are we going to take those traditions into this new world of scientific temper towards the space research?
I don't think that the usage of gap is not the correct terminology. I think there is no gap. We have to be
Okay,
very,
correct.
the whole purpose of talking about all of them is to instill certain sense of capacity within you that, see, your confidence matters. Your ability to understand complex systems like mathematics, technology is one of the highest. You are belonging to a nation that capacity existed. But you know that it has been systematically destroyed. We lost somewhere. We don't have to worry about what happened. I think that's no, whatever happened is happened. But then it is important for us to realize that there is something that happened that we didn't continue that tradition to its natural growth to a high technology nation. It didn't happen. It is due to many reasons. It's due to invasions and cultural changes, many things that happened. But that is behind us. It is not in front of us today. Today, we are looking at a nation which is going to take on that challenge of building afresh. For that, we can be assured that we have a tradition, a culture, and people with the ability to do all of that. I think that's a point in mentioning that. I'm not telling that that knowledge of that Vaimyanika Shastra, I'm going to take it today and then re-engineer it to build a new aircraft. No, I don't think so. That's not the topic of discussion. So
Right.
such notions I do not have. The notion of building a new technology is a new way of looking at it today. Today's engineering is different. So, but
Right.
then if you had worked on that, possibly we would have reached somewhere else, maybe 100 years before. But then that is a story behind the now
Situation.
behind us. I don't have to talk about it. It doesn't help us in any manner.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you. I think you stitched really well. So next is sort of a personal thing. You are a very trained Carnatic musician and a student of Kathakali. I think this
I'm not.
multidisciplinary,
I'm not. I think you should not
activities or
associate. Sorry, don't tell me that I am not. I'm not a
sorry.
Kathakali artist, or not even a Carnatic singer. I
Okay,
am
sir.
only a can appreciate. I don't do any
Okay.
of this. Maybe
Appreciate. Okay. Okay.
you may be talking about
So
also Dr. Radhakrishnan, who was the former chairman of ISRO. He used to be a very professional Carnatic singer and a Kathakali dance. I am not.
correct. Sorry. Sorry. I got my notes wrong. So, having said that, I think most. I mean, have you seen the chairman, the previous chairman, or most of the scientific researchers? They have this multidisciplinary way of living. So, how do you imbibe that culture of multidisciplinary, and how do you bring that as part of your system, so that either in the school education or in the your higher education you don't focus just on your STEM or your specific course, but you also look at other multidisciplinary and how does it build you in your career?
No, that's very important point. I want to tell you, even young people also, they are mostly more than young people, I should tell their parents. Now, why it's important for youngsters to indulge in areas other than studies alone. No, science, schooling, getting high marks, getting through competitive examination is important. But equally important is to enjoy life at some point in time. And this comes through uh, many capabilities, the ability to enjoy soft skills, the ability to develop those capacity, music, art, social services, and many such areas. I
Right.
think young people should definitely get involved. Leadership comes out of not by in one domain. Leadership comes through understanding society and ability to work with a lot of people. And for that, you need to have a mind which is very balanced. You should be able to switch from one domain to another domain easily. So I will only advise young parents of young people when they are mentoring them, make sure that they get opportunity of what they like in addition to what their curriculum demands. Life is not just for schooling or getting into engineering or medicine or becoming a professional. Life is in a holistic way enjoying it. I think the purpose of the life is that, and also delivering back to the society of what you have gained over the years. So it requires many skills, and I want to tell you that multidisciplinary skill in a different way is important for us. Even you become an engineer, I tell people that you cannot become an engineer of one domain like mechanical or electronics. You need to understand other domains as well. Not only engineering, you need to understand other domains of science, how it applies to society, how it will be used to solve problems of that society. Unless you understand, you will never become a good innovative engineer. Innovation comes out of understanding not one domain, it comes of understanding its impact on many other domains. So ability to read and understand, self-learn. Today's generation has a huge opportunity to do that. My generation suffered from that we didn't have access to knowledge. But today you are all lucky to have so much of access. Make use of it and then develop such skills. That's very important.
I think you brought out some of the first principles that that students have to imbibe. A lot of self-learning needs to be there. We'll probably take one last question, sir, and then we'll kind of conclude.
Yeah.
To all the students who are watching tonight, who dream of working in ISRO or any other, the private research companies who want to launch satellites or multiple other areas that you mentioned, there's just so much scope that we have. What is that one dream that they need to pursue, and how do you think they need to go about doing that for the
See,
youth of the generation?
so if you are really keen to work in science, technology domains, I think there is a huge amount of opportunity. Possibly the people who are listening, they may be already knowing where they are, but then how to access them is something which they may wonder. So I want to tell you a few points. In fact, that requires a separate presentation. You should provide such a presentation, which are the technical, scientific opportunities in this country itself, in terms of institutions, how to reach there. Many people come and ask me, how can I become an astrophysicist? Which institution will train me to become a great astrophysicist? If I study what, I can become an astrophysicist. So many people really don't know. It's a serious problem. And many of them simply believe that after your schooling, you become engineer, doctor, lawyer, BCom, chartered accountant. But there is so much of other opportunities. The whatever you like, you can pursue and become. That type of institutions are available in terms of scientific research capacity, student mentorship, and other capabilities. For example, if you want to pursue physics itself, there are so many universities, ISRs, IITs, which will train you to become top-end physicist. And you know that Indians have
Right.
taken much of the astronomical observation scientists are today Indians. There are a lot of them. And many of them pursue their career outside India in working in great laboratories. Similarly, in domains like biotechnology. So I can only tell you that it's very in short question I won't be able to answer. But then with the public knowledge available on institutions, I think where the sources, where the scholarships, and where the institutions will support you in education to pursue your career, there is a huge opportunity. Young people need not get worried. You can ask somebody near your place to do a research. If not, you can go to internet and do a great research and get yourself those information. I think this really, I have compiled and kept. Maybe someday somebody should give a talk in this forum to help young people to identify and pursue their career in different domains.
Sir, I think you just search for wisdom, right? I mean, that's the whole principle, and
Yeah.
I think you kind of concluded the opportunities are bound. I mean, and I think we are looking for a great 2 decades of really high impactful technological innovations and in the space. And it's actually there's a lot of adjacencies. You mentioned so many adjacencies in space technology, which I think at least I was not aware, but this is a very good exposure to all of us. Thanks a lot. And with that, I'll just quickly conclude a couple of things for the uh, Disha Bharat team. So first is just a quick. So today I'll just talk about tomorrow's session quickly, which is day 12. There are a couple of activities. Just a second, just loading up my slide.
It's already shared, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, tomorrow, day 12, we have the live the Bharat and Youth from ISRO to startup journey, 7 to 7 p.m., 7:30 a.m. So people are going to talk about it on these two topics. And can you go to these are talked by the students on as part of the My Bharat and My Responsibility campaign. And after that, we have this interesting event that's coming out, the inter-college competition. I think it's a very sort of fun activities, mobile photography, Bharat through my lens, group singing competitions and patriotic songs, dance competitions, similar patriotic in the patriotic theme. We have a startup pitch that's coming in from ideas to impact. It is happening in MES Institute at 9:30 a.m. August 12, 2026. Please register and you can scan the QR code here. The last date for registration is today, end of day. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, tomorrow we have this interesting talk. Is an actually an offline talk, or rather a talk that's happening at the auditorium in Mythic Society, and it's by the speaker is Ram Madhav, who's going to talk, who's basically a thinker of India Foundation, is going to talk about the strategic position of Bharat in the global leadership, the global South. What is the new world order? And he's going to enrich ourselves in this area. So thanks to one and all, and thank you with humble pranams. Thank you, Dr. Somanath ji. for your presence and your enriching talk. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
ನಿತೀಶ ಒಂದ್ ನಿಮಿಷ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಕೊ. ಯಾರದು ನಿಮ್ ಮಗ?